Hi and welcome to the second video on building Python GUIs with Enaml. Today I want to talk about Enaml models using the Atom package. So we're going to create a new file called models.py, and we're going to import Atom from Atom API, import Atom int Unicode and bool. So we're just going to go to the example and we're going to copy in our example model. So we define a class person that extends Atom, and then we define the attributes of that class. This is similar to like a Django model or Java where you define type strictly and you just set it to an instance of whichever property you want first. Okay, to show you why we want to use Atom, I'm going to open an interpreter and play around with it a little bit. So I like IPython as my interpreter, so I installed IPython, and I'm also going to install the Qt console. Okay. So we can paste in our same code here. And you can create an instance, and it has all the properties, which you can read all the Enaml properties using the members, and you can see they each have the type. So one thing you can do is Enaml will protect you from giving the wrong type. So if I try and set your name to an integer, it complains with the type error. Or if I set debug to a string, the same thing. Enaml allows you to observe changes. So if we set up a print function, we can print the change message that it gives us. So you can do static observers and dynamic observers. So a dynamic observer is when you call the observe method and pass in the name of the variable that you want to observe. So let's just do last name. And you can tell it which handler function to use. So now when we set our last name, it will call that function. So hello. And it prints out the change operation that happened. We can see it's the object, which is a reference to the object that changed, the type of change that occurred, which since it wasn't set at all, it's saying it's create. It will tell you the current or the name of the property that was changed and the value. And then for an update operation, it will also tell you the old value. Okay, there's a couple other features of Enaml that I want to talk about. So you can also define defaults by either passing in a default or you can do a default that's a function. So the syntax for that is default and then the attribute name. So first name. And basically, if no value is passed in, it'll call this default function. Let's try this. So pass in our updated class, make a new instance. See that last name has our default value and first name also has our default value. You can also do observe in multiple ways. So you saw one way where you can do the object name dot observe. For a dynamic observer, you can do static observers using underscore observe and then the name, so age, and then it has to take in the change. So print out that change. And then there's one more way that you can do log all. You can have it observe using the observe decorator. So let's just print this change as well. And the way you do that is you import observe from the Atom API. You decorate your function and you pass in the attributes that you want to observe. So let's watch age, debug, and let's also add in a list in here. And there's a default list and a container list. Container list supports append operations with notification and other manipulations of a list. It will notify you, which we can show that with by observing it. So I'm just going to paste this all in here. And create another instance. So let's test our age observer. So we're getting 2 prints because we have this default observer and this other observe being called. And it will, the decorator will call for any attribute that you pass in. And it's only fired when a change happens. And with lists, so there's the create and update operations, but there's also append. And this is only on the container list. So you see it says it's an operation, append, and the type is a container. So you can basically check these change objects if you want to see what was happening. So with this kind of framework, you can do a lot of things. You can link objects together, you can synchronize state between different objects, and that's one of the powerful things out of the Atom model. Also, another nice thing is everything is in C, so an int takes the same amount of space as an int in C. So if you have huge lists of items, it basically saves a lot of memory.